my name is Michelle, and I live in San Jose, and my profession is I am a kindergarten teacher, and we met about three and a half years ago.
Spot on. Okay, my name is James Geis. I usually go by Trey, and we live in San Jose. I'm a cloud developer, and we've been in the Bay Area our whole life. We first interacted through Hinge, the dating app. I just, sent a rose out there. It's sort of a high reach. I mean, I'm definitely marrying up. Her looks are just everything, and her personality. But we started talking through Hinge. Eventually, I would say that she sort of ghosted me for a while, but that's just because she had family issues over there. But we eventually started talking, getting along, and that led to our first date, which was 7+ hours long. I don't know anyone who would do a first date that long. And from there, that's probably where it took off.
Yeah, our first date was at Great America, and it was on my birthday. He picked me up, I think it was like around 3 o'clock, and then I just remember my friends telling me, like, I hope it goes well because it's on your birthday. And we went to Great America, and we were there until the park closed, and then after that, we went to a ramen restaurant afterwards, and then we just walked around, and then he dropped me off.
I know. And for me, on previous dates before, I would never do a first kiss on the first date, but at the end of Santana Row, there's a nice water, fountain, and the moment felt right. So, yeah. For me, the first date was a good tell that it went very well, and soon we had our second, third date soon after. But I would say the main factor for me that I knew she was the one was when she met my whole family for the first time. She didn't really just meet my mother first in a small setting one day. She met my whole 30+ family at my nephew's birthday party. So it was a lot of overwhelming feelings for her, but she did pretty well. Just remembering the names were a little hard for her, but everyone was just crowding her and asking her questions, and she did very well.
For me, I would say pretty similar to my family. The first time that my family met you, I think it was like a month or a month and a half in our dating relationship phase. And I just remember my mom like really liking you, and she never really cared for like anybody that I was ever with. And then you really clicked with my dad and my brother and my grandparents, and that was a really good sign. And they kept inviting you to like come over for dinner or board games and just spending time with us. And then it turned into like mini vacations, and it already felt like you were part of the family because they were including you in like everything. So
yeah, that was my Filipino sidekick, and I would spoil it not just to you, but your mom, your dad, your brother, your grandparents, flowers, chocolates, wine, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I'll start off by saying that 2 days or 3 days before he proposed, I just remember I was on my phone, and then he told me, oh, you should get your nails done. And I was like, he never tells me to get my nails done. So that was kind of a sign that something was happening. And yeah, and then you could talk about it.
Yeah, I would always goof around with her. Oh, yeah, we're going to go over here, get married. Oh, we're going to go over here, get married. But eventually, I brought her to Monterey, where she just loves. She also went to school there for a brief time, and she loves the beach, right? So, yeah, I sort of already planned it out. I had my family there and your family. They were already parked in the parking lots, right? And it was actually, your name is Michelle, right? So it was like Shell Beach.
Yeah.
So we just put you right from the sign, later. But I just asked you right there at the stop.
And I remember when he proposed to me, out of nowhere, I just heard his sister and my brother screaming, and I didn't even know they were there. And out of nowhere, it was a lot of emotions at once. I was very surprised.
Yeah, like you said before, I wish the weather would have been better.
Yeah.
It was a little sprinkling, cloudy as always, but no, it was good.
Yeah.
I proposed the prenup during those late night talks when we were still, we weren't even engaged yet. So we would have these long conversations over the call, and even in the apartment when we moved in together, about getting married, our futures, our careers, kids even down the future. But that's when I mentioned before that my mom, for her wish, is that she wanted me to get a prenup with whomever I marry. And I wanted you to, just make sure that you're comfortable with that, which you were. And that's really where it started. And my mother, she wanted the prenup because she wanted to keep her legacy. She has 2 houses as a widow, so she did very well for herself. And I have 1 sister, so 1 house would go to her when she passes and 1 for me. And she wanted it to make sure it stays within the family. Not saying that she doesn't believe in who we marry, but it's just a sense of security for herself when she passes, right? So that's what she wanted, and we're doing this for her, really.
And I would just say, like, not only did you tell me about it, but also she came and told me about it too, in a very nice and respectful way, just kind of explaining the situation. And it felt like we understood why we needed to do the prenup. So, yeah. I would say when we talked about it before we were engaged, it was just a brief conversation here and there, but after we were engaged, it was a more of an in-depth conversation when we started looking for an actual prenup or company where we could go with. And in that moment, I think the only thing that was bothering me was the cost, but other than that, yeah.
We found HelloPrenup by going through the traditional route first. We had recommendations from my sister and even my mother shared some recommendations. We went on Yelp. We talked with those lawyers. They gave us their estimates, and we were just mind blown. We just bought a house, so we were already house poor, and spending plus the wedding, so no savings, nothing.
Yeah.
So spending $5,000 or more each for a traditional lawyer was just way too much. We're only spending about $1,000 for our honeymoon, a little small one, then we'll try and do a bigger trip later. But after seeing those prices, we remembered we watched Shark Tank a lot, and we remembered there was a prenup company that did something online. That's when we looked back at it. We saw the whole thing, and we're like, that's it. So we went on the website. From there, it was pretty straightforward. We each did our own template, filled it out, compared answers, built the whole prenup itself. We reviewed it, and we waited that 7 days marker for California. Then we signed it with a notary, I think around midnight.
Yeah.
We were surprised that someone actually did the notary with us that late.
Yeah.
But that's what worked with us with our jobs and planning for the wedding.
Yeah, it was very flexible. We didn't have time to go into an office or into a meeting or anything. We needed it on our own schedule and for our own cost. So it was so helpful that we could do it at the time that we needed to do it and not feel rushed. Like we didn't have to do it 2, 3, 5 months beforehand. It could have been done the month before, which is what we ended up doing.
Yeah, and spending that $700 is just a small fraction of the $10,000 that we would have dropped elsewhere.
Yeah.
So it was a good deal.
When I was filling out the HelloPrenup questionnaire, it was very helpful that there was questions for everything, and it goes really in depth into your relationship, asking you questions outside of just properties, but also children, money, and it really goes in depth so that you have an understanding of your relationship as well.
Yeah, in the beginning, we were sort of only focused on the house property that my mother requested, but all these other questions opened up other areas that we didn't necessarily talk about yet. So that was a good conversation starter.
Yeah.
So doing that, and it was very easy, like you said, all the questions they're all unique, but the answer format was all pretty much standard across each one, right?
Yeah.
It's like yes, no, sort of, or you ask like an advisor. I would say that having access to an attorney was nice. We weren't necessarily looking for it because we didn't have that much in the prenup that I guess would result in that extra reassurance. But it was nice that it was an optional basis. I would say that other third-party companies or traditional lawyers, right, they would require an attorney. So having that option where we wouldn't just be forced to pay for that extra fee and not go through with HelloPrenup. That was just, at least it was a nice reassurance. We talked about it for quite a while, but we decided we don't need it, and we're comfortable with that.
And also going forward, I know couples who are engaged or are getting married who are going to be putting more things on their prenup than necessarily what we have put on our prenup, and just having that conversation with them, they are able to see the breakdown of how much the cost of an attorney or a lawyer is, and it's way more affordable than the companies that they've already called.
I would say HelloPrenup was the best solution for us. One, the price, right? That's one thing. But I would say that the combination of the actual format itself of the prenup, when we looked it over after doing the questionnaire and the review before the notarization, it was actually much, much better than we would have done, because if HelloPrenup was sort of our last resort after the traditional lawyer route, and if we didn't like HelloPrenup, we were going to try and do it ourselves with some template. And that would just take way too long with already our wedding planning. So HelloPrenup, it looked like it actually, not looked like, it actually did follow the guidelines that we saw in the other templates. And we're like, okay, this saves us so much time. It's legit. It follows all the requests, all the requirements for California, and that's what we went through with.
And the website itself was very welcoming, and it was very easy to use. We weren't confused at all, and if you ever had any questions, it was so easy to just look on the website to get those guidelines and questions that you have.
Yes,
Yeah.
I only wish that HelloPrenup was shown to us maybe at like city council or somewhere when we went to get our wedding license papers, somewhere that we could actually see it more advertised than trying to recall our memory, oh, it was on Shark Tank, or doing a Google search. So I think really if people could share HelloPrenup, like I said, or even wedding venues, etc. But I think City Hall would be a great advertisement, and a lot of people would at least take a look at it. I would say that after going through with the prenup process, we did benefit because we talked about those areas that we've never discussed about, right? We were only focused on the property for my mother to be in the prenup. We talked more about, like you said before, having children, what would happen, if we were to split, things about income and etc., other assets, right? Even stocks, etc. So it was a good, at least, starting point. We could talk about those things, which we did, and we left it out of the prenup because we're comfortable with how we are right now.
But allowing us to talk about it before filling out the prenup was very helpful, because when seeing that, we knew what would be the right fit for us.
Mm-hmm. I think that couples, if they're looking at getting a prenup, they should suggest it in a matter of talking about plans in the future of getting married and having kids, and then leading up to that, just throwing out prenup. One, you might scare your partner away or stir up an argument, you never know, but you want to ease into it. And I would say earlier the better, but I would say not when you're in the dating phase, obviously. Maybe I would say
if you got, like you said, if you're already talking about getting engaged or the possibility of children or any of those topics, I think if you're already at that point, then you need to bring that up to your significant other. And when bringing that up, I think it needs to be done in a respectful manner, like when we talked about it, and kind of walking them through the process step by step, not just telling them and then the conversation is over, letting them hear you out and ask any additional questions that you might have.
yes. And like after we were boyfriend and girlfriend, I waited maybe a month or two, and then we started having these talks about weddings and such. And that's when we started briefly talking about it. And after we moved in together in the apartment,
Yeah.
we talked about it a little bit
More
more,
in depth, yeah.
but we already knew the answer, our agreement. And after engaged, right, like you said, you talk about the topic a little bit more and more.
Right.
So it's a little bit more normalized after
Yeah.
that. There's a disagreement of getting a prenup. I think they should settle it down to the lowest points, meaning that they both love each other and you have to do you have to make sacrifices, right? They could explain their part, you could try and reason with them, maybe alter the prenup a little bit, but in the end, if you're both motivated and you both have a happy life, right? Happy wife, happy life, then the prenup really is nothing for you to worry about because you'll be together, right, for the rest of your life.
And it's actually kind of funny because my parents did not get a prenup, and when that was first brought up to me, it was a little different. It was a different approach because I've never really heard about it, but the way that you came to me and talked to me about it, it made me understand more about it, and then being able to have that open conversation, trusting each other to talk about this topic, no matter how uncomfortable we might be feeling in the moment, at least we're able to, that makes us get closer by having that conversation. And I think that that's one of the most important parts.
Yes, and I would say for that person who's in disagreement with getting a prenup, I would just say sacrifice it to be with the one you love. My advice for couples who want to get a prenup, especially with HelloPrenup, is start it early. Start the process early. You really don't know how much little time you have when you're doing wedding planning, as we're getting married in 2 days. It's a lot of stress, a lot of work, a lot of planning. I mean, I have a lot of eye bags already, but I'm glad we already got this through out of the way at least another week before. So start it early because you're gonna have a lot of talks with your partner. You might have other talks with family, friends that might change your decision, but definitely start it early, start the process, do some research on your own, and then you could come talk to your partner about that.
My advice for people who are going to do HelloPrenup is that it's very easy, very simple, and it will alleviate any stress that you might have prior to the wedding or prior or after your engagement. And I think that it is the best option out there, not only affordable, but also it really gets you connected with your partner.
Thank you so much for having us here at HelloPrenup. We really had a great time. It made our lives so much easier. Thank you, Julia, and the rest of the team for having us again. And we are just so excited to get married now.
And go to Cheesecake Factory.